Before we begin, I want to mention that I'll be creating more polls like this to help decide the topics of future videos. So stay tuned, keep an eye on them, and make sure to take part. Switzerland once built a tank destroyer that looked like it was designed to disappear into the Alps, fire one shot, and vanish before the enemy even understood what happened. Hello and welcome. Today we are talking about the MOWAG Typhoon, one of Switzerland's strangest forgotten armoured concepts. At first glance, the Typhoon does not look like a normal tank. It has no turret, it sits extremely low, and its whole design feels more like an ambush weapon than a battlefield brawler. That was the point. This was not built to charge across open ground. It was built for Switzerland's defensive geography, where mountain roads, forests, valleys, and prepared firing positions could turn a small vehicle into a serious threat. The idea appeared in the late 1970s and early 1980s, when Switzerland was looking at how to replace older light armoured vehicles like the AMX-13 and modernize its armoured forces. MOWAG, already working on the Tornado infantry fighting vehicle, used that same basic platform to create a dedicated tank hunter. The result was the Panzerjäger Typhoon. The numbers explain the concept. The Typhoon weighed around 26.5 tons in combat condition, but it was only about 2.1 meters high. That made it lower than many main battle tanks, and even close to the famous Swedish S-tank in silhouette. The firing height of the gun was only around 1.45 meters, which meant the vehicle could hide behind terrain and expose very little of itself when firing. Its main weapon was a full-length 105mm tank gun, probably related to the NATO standard L7 family. MOWAG also planned the vehicle so it could potentially accept a 120mm rifled or smoothbore gun, depending on the customer. For such a low and light vehicle, that was serious firepower. It could carry around 50 rounds, and the gun had good depression, from about -12 degrees to +18 degrees. But the Typhoon had one massive limitation. The gun could only traverse about 15 degrees left and right. That meant the whole vehicle had to be aimed more like an old tank destroyer than a modern tank. In a perfect ambush, that was acceptable. In a confused fight, it was dangerous. The crew layout was also unusual. It had a driver, gunner, commander, and loader, with the loader also able to act as a second driver. This mattered because the Typhoon was meant to shoot, reverse away at high speed, reload, and move to another hidden position. It could drive forward and backward at up to 65 kilometers per hour, which made the escape part of the doctrine just as important as the shot itself. Mobility was one of its strongest points. The vehicle used a 9.3-litre Detroit diesel 8V71T engine, producing around 575 horsepower, paired with a modified Renk automatic transmission. With a strong power-to-weight ratio, a 400-kilometer range, and good off-road ability, the Typhoon was not supposed to stand still after firing. It was a hit-and-run machine. But the price of that mobility was protection. The armor was only about 25 millimeters of welded steel. That could help against small arms, fragments, and some lighter threats, but it was not real tank protection. Against Soviet tanks, autocannons, or modern anti-armor weapons, the Typhoon had to avoid being seen at all. If it was spotted, the concept started to fall apart. That is the central weakness of the Typhoon. It was a brilliant ambush idea, but a fragile battlefield vehicle. It had the gun to kill tanks, the speed to escape, and the silhouette to hide. But it did not have the armor or flexibility to survive a direct fight. And by the early 1980s, the Swiss military was also moving away from the dedicated tank destroyer idea. Instead of buying a special vehicle built only for ambush tank killing, Switzerland leaned towards stronger main battle tanks, artillery, and air power. The Leopard 2 would eventually become the more logical answer. A proper main battle tank could fight, maneuver, survive, and adapt better than a narrow-purpose vehicle like the Typhoon. So, the MOWAG Panzerjäger Typhoon never entered service. At least one prototype was built, but it did not attract customers and appears to have disappeared after the project ended. Today, it survives mostly through photographs, documents, and the curiosity of people who like forgotten Cold War machines. But that is exactly why it is interesting. The Typhoon was not just a failed vehicle. It was a snapshot of a very specific military fear. Soviet armor pushing through Europe, and a small neutral country preparing to turn its own terrain into a trap. It was low, it was fast, it was dangerous from the right position, but it was also too specialized for the future that actually arrived. The MOWAG Taifun was Switzerland's forgotten tank hunter, a machine built around one brutal idea: fire first, disappear fast, and never fight fair. What do you think? Was the Typhoon a smart defensive weapon that arrived too late? Or was it too fragile from the beginning?